public meeting. We will have an interpreter presenting, and our lineup will start shortly, so stay tuned for when we go live with our presentations.
Took the mic.
So we're live here on Division of Forestry, waiting for the Sterling Community Center meeting to start.
That's the one we'll talk to.
That's the one we'll talk to you.
And I want the agenda, and then we'll go to that map there.
Say hello to IC Tom Kirk.
Okay, good evening, folks. I'm Sam Harrell, Information Officer with the Alaska Interagency Incident Management Team. We've got just a few people coming in the door here. I think we're ready to go. All right. Well, thanks for coming out for this here this evening. Let's get underway here. Incident Commander Tom Kirk.
All right, again, good evening. Thank you for coming out here. And I'm the incident commander with the Alaska Interagency Incident Management Team. Again, about 60 individuals that I bring with us from throughout the state here to various agencies. We bring our subject experts in operations, planning, finance, safety, information, that sort of thing. We come together here at the request of the agency, which is the Kenai National Wildlife Refuge, the Alaska Division of Forestry. Under their direction, then we bring in all the crews and heavy equipment, aircraft, and that sort of thing that you see out on this incident here. And we'll talk about that and how it applies to this fire here. But it is interesting to know how we come together and formulate a fairly large organization to address what the incident has to offer here. So how many were with us when Friday night, I guess it was, right? Okay, a fair amount, so you know the routine. And then I think it was at the request of Mayor Charlie Pierce there, he said, how about we have another one of these? And sure enough, this is a pretty strategic time to talk about this fire, what it's doing, what we're doing, where we are, what the weather is, that sort of thing. So again, our agenda will be the same. That is, I'll give you a little introduction here. We'll go to where we are with this fire and get a good look at the map. Fire weather, fire behavior is next. Then from there, we're going to go to where we're headed. And then we'll talk with folks like Dan Nelson from the Office of Emergency Management here. And then we'll go to questions and answers. And so that's kind of how we'll work the agenda. Hold your questions. We'll certainly get to them. That's one of our most important parts, to hear what it is from you that you have questions about here. So we're almost probably 10 days into this incident here. We're looking at over 40,000 acres now just north of the Sterling Highway outside of town here. You certainly have seen where the smoke is coming from. Right now we have like 500 and almost 50 people on this. That's 15 crews, 5 dozers, 5 helicopters, access to retardant ship out of Palmer and Kenai here. Let's see, we have we have overhead and support. We're at the Sterling School, and we certainly have gotten a feel for this incident, and now we'll see how we approach this. And there's going to be some changes that you'll recognize from the last time we talked here. That's a fairly large amount of growth over the past 5 days that we've had our last meeting here. Okay, so I'm going to let Ed talk about where we are with this fire here, and let him introduce himself. And Ed.
Thanks, Tom. Good evening, folks. My name is Ed Sanford. Last time Tom was here, he kind of introduced himself. So I'm a lifelong Alaskan. I live out of Fairbanks. I work for the state of Alaska as a fire management officer. And that area is about 10 million acres, and we're responsible for suppression action. So that's the initial attack, heli-attack, engines, and all that stuff. I also lived in Homer, so I'm familiar with this area. In addition, the Funny River Fire, I was one of the ops chiefs on that fire. So I definitely know this area and the concerns that you guys have out here. I'm going to talk about what we're doing on the incident, and I'm going to lead into what our plan is. I'm going to tell you what we're doing, why we're doing it, and where we're going to be going with this, okay? First, we're going to start off with the map. I'm not sure if you guys can see it back there, but you're located right here on the map, okay? The red is the fire perimeter. Sterling Highway goes along this way. And then you're going to see on the map there's numbers. Division Alpha. What we do is we get on fire is we'll go out and fly it the first time, and we start coming up with a long-term plan, strategic plan. We start putting resources, and that's how we break it off geographically. In addition, we got the mountains to the east, and then up north, we got the flats and stuff like that in there, and then all the valleys at risk. Important stuff that we're aware of, and that's where you guys reside. So this fire started June 5th. With the initial attack, and then the Type 3 incident management team was here for about 6 days. And then in the national fire world, there's 5 complexities of management. 5 is like the lowest, number 1 is the highest. Tom Kurtz is a Type 1 incident commander, and this is a Type 2 incident. I'm a Type 1 ops chief and a Type 2 IC. So you get a lot of Type 1 players on this team, which is good. So we have fires like this in the nation. They look at complexities and they bring in the resources the team used to manage this fire. When we were here last, when we took over from the Type 3 team, they were working on an area up in here. And we talked to you guys last, and we were looking at going direct. Remember Chris was here? Some of you guys weren't here, but the ops chief, Chris was here, was talking about going direct. And that was basically right on the fire's edge, with those chainsaws, clearing brush, and keeping the fire from spreading to the south, okay? And the indirect lines he probably talked about was moving away from the fire, putting in control lines, and using that as a barrier, okay? And we'll talk a little bit more into that here in a second. During that event, as the high pressure built in, the fire activity picked up. And we were so close to our objectives and tying that in and pushing the fire to the east into the hills there. It popped out, and at that time, we're at where we're at now. We'll talk more into that. Let me tell you currently where we're at. I'm going to start up on the north side in Papa. Since we've been here, this fire edge, these lines here, we call division breaks. So in each division, we'll have a supervisor and a bunch of resources. This part that runs to the northeast is being monitored by air. There hasn't been any fire activity in this area right here in the 10 days we've been here. With the flats, it must be cooler and a little wetter. As we head northeast, and this black line that's coming down here is the gas line. The stuff that we were protecting up there as it moves up that way, when Chris was talking to you last, In our terminology in fire, we call it point protection. What that is, if there's a value out there like a cabin, something on the landscape that needs to be protected, we'll send our resources out there. And what they do is fly in there with helicopters, we have sprinklers and hose, and they get set up, and they get ready to defend that structure at that point they're protecting. And they can do that with hoses, they can use fire to burn out around it to keep the main fire from impacting them. So that's what kind of point protection does. So way up there, on top of the map versus 870, we got a couple structures out there, we got folks out there. They fly in, we drive around, we also have the Moose Laboratory that's up there that we're protecting those sites. We got folks up there in that area. Now as we swing around into Papa, Division Papa, this line is unmanned. In fact, there's no value or risk out here. We have the mountains over here that can hold that. And what's important is when we come south. Sterling Highway comes through here, major artery to the Kenai. We're very aware of that. We also know there's lots of traffic on it. We have folks coming down to visit this great area for fishing, activities, and it's also a big concern of ours. The fact that we're working in that area, and I'll explain that here in a second. For the last 5 days since we've been here, one of the first things we do when we get here is we get with the local government here. And what I mean by that, we get fire departments, emergency services, state troopers, all the stakeholders that are out there, because we can't do this by ourselves. But what I mean by that is we need those expertise that come in here. The borough has evacuation plans. The state troopers help us with the road corridor. The Kenai National Refuge helps us to maintain the traffic flow for our firefighters to get in there to work and be safe while they're on that highway. So currently, this fire is starting to burn down towards the road. Our objective is keep it north of the highway and east of Watson Lake. And the reason behind that is it impacts this road, which we know that is a heavily traveled road for everybody to come into the Kenai and go out of the Kenai. And that's why we're down here. In addition, we've got a lot of people in here to keep this fire moving west into your communities. So what we did is what we call a backfire. That basically, as the main fire comes towards you, we're going to remove the fuel out in front of it. And it's one of the safer ways we do that. Earlier we were up in the bushes up there in the middle, and it's hard to manage fire because you don't have a control line, and you're working the fire's edge, and the fire edge is never straight, let me tell you. When you have a natural barrier, we don't have to build big salt lines, put it in, we can work off of it, it's safe. One thing we do as managers is we look at risk. Every day we have a planning cycle and we go through risk management and where we're going to put our firefighters, and the bottom line is that they're going to be successful. That's the end state, we want to be successful and safe. So this black line that you're looking at right now is what they did is they started on the east side, they started what we call backfire lighting with fire. What does that look like? It's Hot Shots, which is a 20-man crew. We have shop crews in Alaska and shop crews in the lower 48, and they got a tool, they drop fire, and it's burning the fuel out in front of the main fire. The challenges that they're having is this is a mountain range, and the gaps come through here. We spend a lot of time with our weather folks, meteorologists, to come up with good plans on this. And right now, we're looking pretty good. They're battling that. The winds have been coming out of the north, coming out of the north, coming out of the north. So it's been slow going. They're burning into the wind. We're managing traffic flow in and out of here, and moving the fuel out in front of this. As they start going, and they get a couple hundred feet of what we call a black line, basically the fire's edge is going away from that control line up to like 100 feet, 200 feet. Then we bring in aviation assets. Maybe we'll show a picture or a video. So we have helicopters and we have drones that we use out there. And they can drop little, they look like ping pong balls. And they ignite and they hit the ground and they start fire. So as the hand crews are coming through here, the engines are on the road to support that, and the fire starts pulling away, the aircraft will come out here and start building some heat and push this fire into that. So basically the fire's edge is actually, this is pretty much all on fire. At this point, we're right here. We're hoping to get to the division break right here where Watson Lake is. And the purpose behind that, we need to get there, is we're trying to get off the highway so folks can come down here and enjoy Kenai. Granite Construction's working in there. We have a lot of cooperators. We meet every day, twice a day. They know what everybody's doing out there, how we operate in that environment out there, how we communicate, how we move traffic up and down the road. So what's that going to look like? Today, we're hoping to be here the latest 2 days. We're still battling that north wind with smoke coming across here, and we're managing that. Once we get to this corner here, this is a wind, this is a wind, and we're going to slowly bring fire here and clean it up. We have about 150 people between here to here. You're probably looking at this red edge right here. In the fire world, once we contain a line, we usually put a black line on it that says it's contained. Two words we use, contain and control. Contain is it's not going to move further out that line. Control is it's not going anywhere anymore. Right now, we should be having that line contained in the next 24, 48 hours, and we feel really comfortable in that. They've got that thing mopped in probably 200, 300 feet. What does that mean? That means the crews are going in there and gritting, I mean shoulder to shoulder, and they're feeling for hot spots, and they're taking the tools and mopping it up. And once they go through that, we have devices, infrared cameras that will fly over this and pick up any heat. In addition, back at ICP, we have tools that we're tracking aircraft in the air, real time. We're tracking heat images. If anything pops up, we're getting that information out to those guys and vice versa. So even though this shows red, we feel really good on that. And then the piece here is we've got a natural barrier. We've got some lakes in there. We got a bunch of hot shots, we got airboats and everything in there. As they turn this corner, and this is all looking good, then we'll start taking care of this. And that's real important. Because we can take care of this chunk. This is the area that's threatened the highway in addition to folks. You also are probably looking at this line here, probably thinking what that line is. It's around Sterling. So the agencies that we work for here, Tom mentioned, they've spent a lot of time, in addition I do, back in the Fairbanks area, putting fuel mitigation projects in there. And the purpose is keep large fires like this from impacting your communities. And it's a good safety check. When I was on the Bunny River fire, when that thing was moving south, it was that big fuel break that we were burning off of. And that's what kept the fire from coming down into the communities there. We're also looking at, we got folks out here right now. We're actually making it a little bit stronger in there. So if anything gets across there, then we can have a defense, what we call a secondary line. But I can tell you right now, if anything comes down this line, anything gets established in here, it's going to be aggressive initial attack. That means all the aircraft that we have, all the folks out there would be moving to that way. In addition, we have a plan in place with municipalities, fire departments, forestry, and everybody else to come in and support us. So that's the current situation right now. Kind of got a little bit into what we're going to talk about later in about 20 minutes. And then after that, we'll take questions at the end. Okay, thanks.
Well, hang on for just a second here. understand, do we have can we queue up the drone footage? We have the drones. You've seen them, right?
So the drones probably came into the fire world the last half a decade, and it's actually helped us out. We kind of model our programs after the military and our system, how it works. In the past, we used to fly around in a helicopter and working with the pilot, and there'd be a guy in the back working this machine, hanging out the helicopter all strapped in, and it's fun, but it's probably not a good risk management in case something happened. And we use fire to fight fire that's out there. So we moved to the drones, and like I said, after a decade, and that's helped us out. And why it has is the fact that we can actually use these aircrafts to go out there and recon areas when it's too smoky. We can recon them to do aerial firing now, and we can also send them out and get infrared when it's real smoky. In the past, we had to bring the military in and scan areas. Like up in Fairbanks, we actually had to go to the center to get a device, an aircraft to scan these areas. We had a big fire, boundary fire in 2004. We had to get the military. Now we're advancing in the National Fire Program. So this thing's probably, I don't know, it's probably about 2.5 feet wide. It's got a couple operators, and they program it on a computer, and it runs whatever you put in there. It runs grids, and it's real time. You can watch the video, watch everything that's doing out there, and it lays precise lines. So there it is. So it's just like, it looks like a toy. Like you go down to Good Myers and pick it up. At the very bottom of it, you can see these little balls in here, and it's got a camera underneath it, and they can send that stuff out. Also, our hotshot crews carry these things too, especially in Alaska. It's pretty flat. Over 48, you get down there, big hills, stuff like that, find the fires. They'll launch those things up and look around for them. So it's a good tool. We can move on to some of the footages. So this is a photo of what fires look like in Alaska. And this is in IR. We apologize about that. They sound like that.
Yeah, I can play it in there either.
There you go.
Okay.
Just let it run.
All right.
So those guys get special training to be able to be an operator of that. You got to have your FAA license and state license when you fly around Alaska with your small plane. So, and this is some of the IRs that they can pick up. So, you know, Alaska, it's not 24-hour darkness, but we get a lot of afraid to work down there on incidents. We'll fly these around. We also have another one that's bigger that'll fly 24 hours real time over top of fire and spin it. So the ICs and operations, we're watching it. We're watching where people are working out there. Here's where it's actually dropping. I talked about when we were burning off the line with the hand guys, and then to make it deeper to the main fire, we'll send those out there and it shows what it's doing right now. And like I said, the purpose is to rob the fuel. Fuel is the trees, the moss, and everything. And it actually, we do it on our turns instead of the fire coming running at us. So we pull it away from the destroying highway. Right now, it doesn't look like lots of flames and stuff like that. It's typical fuel type in Alaska, where it smolders. You get a little bit of wind on it. The smoke lifts, like we've been seeing the last couple of days, and these columns come up, and the sun gets on it, and then it starts cooking up. So that's how it starts in the mornings, and then we try to get ahead of it before it builds steam and take it out. So that's kind of the drones we have right now, and that's kind of operations, and I'll be back and talk to you here in a second.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Yeah, my preference on drones really is it eliminates a lot of our helicopter time, low-level helicopter time where we have the pilot and usually the passenger exposed. If you have an engine failure or something, you're low-level and you don't have much time to react anyway. So the drones can take all that time up for us. They're dependable. They can fly in smoke. They can fly at night. They can fly in places where we can't get to. So they've been a big help to us. Now, as we talked about last time, fuels, weather, topography. My favorite part here of each and every briefing are our fire weather with Ben Bartos, and then our fire behavior with Chris Moore here. So, Ben from the National Weather Service here.
Evening, everybody. I'm Ben Bartos. I'm with the National Weather Service. I'm what's called the incident meteorologist for this incident down from Anchorage. And I spent about 8 years forecasting the weather up in Fairbanks before that. So real quick, for those of you who weren't here at the last meeting, I'll just quickly describe what an incident meteorologist is. Basically what I do is that this situation is so complex with everything we've got going on, as described previously with the fire, that you actually need somebody like myself, an actual meteorologist, to come in and focus solely on the weather for this specific fire and the surrounding area. So normally I'd be back in the Anchorage forecast office forecasting for like the whole Kenai Peninsula, for instance, for the day. But instead, they'll send me out to a place like this, and I will focus strictly on the fire and, like I said, the surrounding areas to be able to really get the weather dialed in, because it's that important for a very dynamic event like this. So with that, I'll move into, actually I should say too, my primary role here is safety. That's why we're down here. Firefighter safety on the line, and public safety as well. So we're here making sure that when everybody's out there working that fire, that they're staying safe doing it. That's my primary mission while on the fire. So moving into the weather, I'm sure everybody knows it's been quite hot and dry for the past few days. That's because we have a high pressure system that is parked to our south in the western Gulf of Alaska, just pumping warm air over top of us. And we expect that to continue through the weekend. So actually, for the next couple of days, that high pressure system is going to move actually directly over the Kenai Peninsula. So we expect temperatures to actually ramp up at least a few degrees, getting up in the interior areas around here of the Kenai Peninsula up into the upper 80s. Even the next few days, going into the weekend with Friday looking like the warmest day. So quite warm, I'm sure more than a lot of us like to see this time of year. But just want to keep everybody aware that it's going to be hot and dry the next few days. We're confident in that forecast. It's a pretty stable and stagnant pattern, so we don't really see much change in the future with that actually. So everybody should just be aware. Like I said, I want to really drive that home. Hot and dry for the rest of the week with the weather. Thank you very much, and I will be around after the meeting if anybody wants to talk weather. Thank you.
Good evening, I'm Chris Moore. I am the fire behavior analyst, and I work very closely with Ben. And as Tom alluded to before, there are three things that make fires burn: the fuels, the weather, and the topography. So Ben's covering the weather part. I take the information he gives to me, look at the fuels, look at the topography, and come up with estimates of rate of spread, how fast the fire is going to move, how tall the flames are going to be, and try and predict where the fire is going to move, so when the operations people come up with a plan, we can kind of talk about it and say, yes, this is going to be doable or not. So Ben covered it. It's hot and dry, relatively windy. Fires burn much better when it's hot and dry out. Black spruce is our main fuel of concern in Alaska. There's plenty of black spruce out in the fire. Topography is relatively flat, so that's not a big player. When that comes into play is when there's not a strong wind over the fire. These local and terrain-driven winds kind of pick up, and they can move the fire in different directions, not just in a constant direction. So to explain what's going on with this burnout along the road, a fire in black spruce under these conditions can move half mile, 3/4 of a mile an hour, and send little spots out ahead of it up to a half mile ahead of itself. Those spots land on those dry fuels, start another fire, and the fire keeps progressing as it goes. So that's that, worst case scenarios when there's wind, when there's fuel, everything lines up. The road looks like a really good barrier, but by itself, the fire can easily spot over it and continue on. Ski Lake is a really good barrier, but the road is not that good of a barrier. So the operations people are trying to make that road a better barrier by burning it out, getting more and more width on that so the fire will have to work harder to get over that. So that's pretty much what I do. Same thing with Ben, safety of people on the ground, safety of people in the community, and try and help the people coming up with the operations to let them know if it's going to work or not, or what to expect with the conditions on the fire. And over the next 3 days with these hot, dry conditions, the fire is going to burn quite well. And hopefully our plan will work here, burning out the fuel from the road and keep the fire where it is. Thanks.
I'm going to talk about the long-term plan where we're at, but before I get there, I want to talk to you about what we're dealing with at the national level. I say the national level is the United States of America. We've been really successful at what we call initial attack. That means the first responders have cleared out fires. You can see it on CNN and Fox and all those channels for like last 5 years, right? So we've been putting all these little fires out. I had the same problem up in Fairbanks too. We're really good at getting initial attack. Our forests have gotten bigger and bigger and bigger. And at the national level, we recognize that. You see fire activity in California and all that stuff, disasters and issues they have out there. We're finally recognizing that some fire on the landscape is good and prescribed fire is good. You have healthy forests out there. Because when we have starts like this, we have big fires and they're harder to control. And prescribed fire actually helps us manage fires on the landscape, and so they're not so intense. And we're dealing with that at the national level, at the state level. That's why the locals, the areas in the local government, state forestry, in addition, put these fuel breaks in there because they recognize that stuff, and that's a good thing. So in Alaska, we burn about a couple million acres a year. Some of those fires are so big you don't recognize it, you don't see it in the news because there's no smoke and it's not impacting you. And we track that all year. We map those things and manage some of that fire out there. And it's, not all fire is bad, but fire is bad and it comes into our communities. But that's why we're here. Okay. I mean, long-term effects of the fire is just like Card Street fire, Funny River fire. We know we have fires in there. It takes about 80 years for black spruce to grow back. And something about black spruce, if you look at it between black spruce and white spruce, black spruce limbs go all the way around. There's a purpose for that, because it needs fire to go into the trees. If you notice the cones are up top, it's heat needs to open up the cones for seeding. Okay? So that's why, and black spruce is so thick, there's thousands and thousands of stems of small trees, that grow up to 25 feet in an acre, and it's very volatile, it's very oily. And this fire follows the black spruce. If you look at the pattern right there, and you guys from here, you know where all the black spruce stands out there. So long-term effects up top is going to be good for habitat, good for the ecosystem, but what's not good is over here, and that's why we're here. We're going to continue getting this line in, so you're going to see we're trying to get this done, in a day or two, but it's more like going to be like, 3 or 4 days. We'll finish this. We want to take it slow. We want to do it right. There's going to be some smoke up in the air. The big columns that you see every day that's coming up is this up in Papa area. All this stuff. Those are the big columns we're seeing. And the stuff that you're going to be seeing in here is from us doing the backfire. As this fire comes down, as it gets closer here, we burn a little bit more. Check it out. Burn a little bit more. And just slowly bring it around here. And be precise. Right time, right place. We're just not going in there and put a bunch of fire in there. We got inch along, hold it, inch along, and hold it. So that's what it's going to look like the next couple days. Anticipate talking to you in the near future or the next public meeting. And I'll be hanging around here for questions when we're done. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed. I'm Dan Nelson. I'm the emergency manager for the Kenai-Benson Borough. Just a couple quick comments that I want to add here, echoing some of what the team said. The borough has been involved along with many of the other, what you heard is referred to as cooperating agencies. And that's all local agencies that have some sort of partner, some sort of involvement to play. And, meeting many times a day and making sure the biggest group text chat you can imagine we're in it, and making sure that we're keeping those lines of communications open for you and representing the community and the locals. So what I want to point out here for our folks that live in Sterling, Ed talked about it, but we look at those fuels that he talked about, the black screws, how that's being burnt out, the fuel breaks that have been put in place. It's a real good positive thing for our community, and a threat that's being mitigated even through a fire that started by lightning with good management, great management from the team and from the folks on the ground, makes it a good outlook for Sterling and that whole community. So remember those lines on the map that don't look like much right now really represent a significant improvement and significant safety for our community. So the borough has those plans in place that we've talked about with troopers and with others. If we do have to do something like evacuate or make some other step forward, however, keep in mind that all the great work that's been done. So I'd like to just take this opportunity to thank the public. Thank you for your patience as we go through things. There's a lot of smoke in the morning with inversions. Incident management is a little bit of an art. It's not quite so organized sometimes. It takes a little bit while to get going. But with the Type 3 team that started and the Type 2 team that took over, we're in excellent hands. And those almost 500 people that are on the fire line keeping our community safe are doing a great job. So I, on behalf of the borough and all of the cooperators and team, wanted to thank the public for your patience as we have traffic delays, as we have smoke and doing those things, but I really want to re-emphasize here what a good thing that we're going to have at the end. So I'll be around and available for questions as well, but I think your questions are more important, so I'm going to turn it back over here and we'll move on to that.
Okay, thank you, Dan. And before we get to the question and answer period, I got a couple of questions for you guys. Hang on for just a second. How many of you have been around a large wildland fire? And how many have been around fires near or around this community? Okay, so you have a significant fire history that continues to grow, right? So one of the things that we as fire managers do, certainly up there in the north, habitat change is important to the ecology here. I think this refuge is 1.9 million acres, is that what you said? 40,000 acres or something, that's about 2% of the land mass out there. And keep in mind, not all that is burning in there. But as fire managers nowadays, and certainly that goes for the refuge that has oversight of this, the risk reduction that we get from a fire like this is huge from the standpoint of reducing the threat to your community in the future here. And we have the opportunity when we have a lightning-caused fire in here, and then we take advantage we have, at least 500 people here. And so once this event is over, it's not, it's uncomfortable while it's here. The traffic is bad, the smoke is uncomfortable. Once this hold is burned into this very fire-prone ecosystem, then that serves as a barrier to protect your community and your values in the future here. So that is a huge undertaking. It's a tough decision for the refuge managers. And so in the end, this will be much to the advantage of this community here as we continue to reduce this continuous black spruce. This black spruce is fire dependent, right? Lightning storm comes in, it's thriving on a fire. It starts to burn, the cones open up, throw seeds all over the place, and back it comes again. So this fire will be much to the advantage of this community once we get everything under control and time passes on here. So that's an important concept in today's environment where living with fire is a huge theme out here. you've seen what happens to communities in California and those places. And when it comes time, when the conditions are such that we cannot turn a fire away because of wind and the weather, then those places are very vulnerable to fire here. So at some point, we'll be looking back as this as a positive thing here. Okay, so we're going to take some questions here. I'm going to turn it over to some of our subject experts here. Andy, you want to talk anything in general here? Okay, so in the back there, you got a microphone right behind you.
Yeah, it works. Okay, Commander Kirk, first things first, we have to thank you and all the firefighters here for doing such a darn good job. Hard work, dirty work, and we're very thankful you guys are dedicated like this. Thank you.
Okay, we certainly appreciate that. That really goes to these guys who are they're toiling out there 16 hours every day, you know. We have 3 shifts out there now. We're working 24 hours on this thing.
I know, let me continue to have a question. I know that you talked about the fire moving this way, the breaks you're doing, and all the 150 people, I think you said, working on this southwest
corner.
Yes. How confident are you that you're going to be successful and it's not going to come significantly closer?
Well, certainly a good question. How does it affect me? And that's, how confident are we? I'm going to have to say we have some of the best firefighters in the country here because they get so much experience. The guys that are in charge of this burn out here work primarily for the military zone up there in the interior. We get a lot of action out of the military, starting fires here, and they very, there they have unexploded ordnance all the time, so we have to fight fire from the air or fight fire with fire all of those times. So those delicate operations, as you saw with the drone or something, where we're trying to set a fire in the other direction, we have some of the best people available to us here. We feel we have this riparian area as we come around. This has been a good line for us. You can see it here. And then once we come up into the East Fork, we're pretty confident about that. And then we have, at this time we have the resources we need to do this job. It's the weather that is our problem. Yesterday we had southwest winds, and we got that amount of line. Today we have northwest winds, so it's blowing down on us. So everybody's stopping, going really slow. Maybe by this evening, everything calms down, and we can carefully walk fire around that corner. How confident are we? Very confident.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but any winds coming from anywhere west is good for Sterling.
Any wet fire, any wind west, good for Sterling, yes. That's certainly, these are some fickle winds in here. We'll get wind in 2 different directions on each side of the fire because they come off the Cook Inlet, they bounce off that mountain range, and then here they come down the highway, something like that. So trying to get familiar with it and trying to predict it. We get predictions every hour as to what that's looking like. And then it's really an innate sense out there on the line of when's the right time. So they're all prepared to pick up where they were right here. They're all in position here right now. And we'd love to finish this section of line so we can get off that highway and round that corner in the East Fork of the Moose River and tie in. If you were to hear this section up above us, that too was burned at one time and continues to hold. Now this fire here has come out of a little hole in our line that we had established there. All it takes is one little area there and has been moving there for about 5 days. All that area south of that gas line is what 5 days movement in. So this fire certainly is determined. And given the conditions we were in, it's going to be fire weather for a while. So tying this little corner off, we're confident we can do it. We would prefer to have good conditions. If we don't, we might put scoopers in behind us, throwing water and changing that environment. So we got the tools. Okay, good question.
Yeah, I asked that question last meeting, and I don't think I got the answer that I was looking for, so I'll ask it again. First off, our priority is to get the fire out right now. My other question is that what are we doing when this fire is gone, and we forget about this fire, then it grow back? What are we doing to prevent the next one? Are we really doing anything at all to take care of these heavy black spruce areas, cutting terrain or whatever to make fire breaks prior to having an electrical strike or some sort of a fire start, and so that we don't have to have such a large capacity fire going at us all at once right now?
Yeah, okay, another good question. Were you here last time?
Exactly. I asked that same question, and that question didn't get answered.
Yeah.
It went around.
Okay, well, I just want to preface it with the idea that on days like this during the summertime, Alaska can receive anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000 lightning strikes in a day. And that's a lot of ignition points out there. Now, south of the Alaska Range, or in the state of Alaska fire protection, 85% of our fires are actually started by humans. So that's a small amount of fires that are started by lightning, at least down here. And then those lightning starts are generally our biggest fires because they're in remote locations and they have time to grow. It takes a while to detect them. It takes a lot of logistics to put them out and that sort of thing. The majority of Alaska is in limited fire protection, which means we make the decision and we make the call. Should we put this out, or do we have enough resources to put it out? That's a tough one again. But I believe that there has been fuel mitigation in these points. So mechanically, those areas have been cleared to give us a place to establish protection of values at risk here. So a lot of the Sterling corner there, looking into the refuge, has a fuel break in it that has mechanically been constructed. It's not reasonable to think that we can put every fire out. That's not going to happen. Usually 750 to 1,000 fires in a summer. We got 135 fires going right now. It's a big state, and these fires get very determined once they get established.
So the question is still there. What are you doing to stop the other fires from starting? I know we got one fire break. Is there any other areas you're working for fire breaks so that we don't have such a large fire?
My day job, that's a very good question to answer for you. And I deal with a lot of stuff in addition to local areas down here. So what we do is we work with different agencies and we try to be cost share and look at priority areas that are out there that values at risk, right? Where we have lots of fires, past history fires, populated areas, areas that are hard to get to. And what we do, and a lot of these guys do too, is we write grants. We write grants to the federal government and get some of these fuels money to do projects like that. So that kind of answers the question. Some of the state folks here, the federal agencies, maybe have some money to talk to those guys. And as a community, Firewise community, the first thing you should do is, what we call Firewise, is start with your own personal property first. That helps us fight and protect your property. So when we go in there, it makes our job a lot easier. What does that look like? Start clearing some brush around your community, around your structure, make sure we have access to your property. That's the first thing you should be doing. The second is talk to your local government here, see what options they have out there, stop by forestry, talk to those guys, in addition to KENI. In addition, we also know there's less funds to the federal government, in addition to the state funds too. So there's not a lot of funds out there, and we're working hard to get that. And when we get those funds, we have to be strategic where those fuel breaks go. And I think these guys were strategic, and they knew possibly at one point you're going to get a large fire here, and that's why that fuel break's there. Those fuel breaks do work. Scientifically, we work at the University of Alaska Fairbanks. We've ran a prescribed fire through stuff. You can go to the Fire Science Consortium online. It has history. It shows the data there. So these things do work. And when we build them super wide, we try to make them so they stand alone until the first responders get there. So hopefully that answers the question.
Well, it's partly, that's why I was asking last time, is because we had some of the legislature here, and I want to know if
understand. I think, after the meeting, there's some folks back here who can answer some questions too on that. Next question, sir.
Yes, this is a commercial on traffic control. I just came in off of Ski Lake Loop Road, and the dust is so horrendous that there's zero visibility, and they need to do something about dust remediation. Otherwise, you're going to have some bad accidents on Ski Lake Loop.
It's noted, and it's something we talk about every day in our planning meetings. When I say planning meetings, we have a bunch of meetings, and we're looking at what we can do out there to keep public safe. We actually got some water, and tenders coming, and working with DOT, it's we got decimated down. Okay. Hey, this gentleman right here has been holding his hand up for a while.
I don't know what direction is on that.
Okay. I don't know what direction is on that map. What's on the left side? North, south, east, or west?
So
left side.
This would be the west side.
Left side of the map.
Left. West.
What direction is that? West. Is that north, south, east, or west?
Okay, so north is up that way, south is down here, west.
Okay, on the east side of the Moose River,
yep,
there's been a great increase in bear incidents, and I just wondered if anybody's taken that into consideration. Apparently, they've been being driven down by the fire.
That's something we look at. As we get the incidents, we look at all risks. So every day we look at complexity risk analysis. We're looking forward to definitely addressing that. We have tools to deal with that, with bears. Lady in the back.
I want to ask a question about the people going through on the Sterling Highway. I heard it's closed, then it's open, then you have people going in. We'll be going to Anchorage next week, and I don't know if I have to stay here to pack, or what do we do? I mean, there's been so many people on the road right now. They wait for 8 hours. And it's getting out of hand there, and I'd like to know what you guys are doing about it, if you're taking the old loops out of Ski Lake, or what are you guys doing on that part?
Okay, that's a good question. So let's go back to the map real quick. We're hoping to get this done today, max 2 days to get off the road. That will open up the traffic in there. We've got construction going in there, granite construction, building roads in there. They're with us every day. You talked about the loop road. That road's open, but it's 18 miles long, and yes, it's dusty, we'll get some water in there, but you need to travel that, at your own risk too, right? So, DOT, in addition to law enforcement, are all over this road, and we actually have a pattern out there that are people, DOT, granted, our safety officers, and to answer your question too, also not just the fire, when we have medical or some kind of emergencies on that road, they've been delayed 8, 9 hours too. We're only delaying it when we have smoke and impact the highway, so people don't bump into each other out there. Next question. Gentleman up here.
Questions for Mr. Bartos. We've heard that wind will impact this fire. Do we see any weather systems coming in that are going to impact the winds to change direction, good or bad?
No, in short. So this high pressure system that we've got is going to come literally right over us over the weekend, and that'll kill any what we would call prevailing winds or general winds. So really going into the weekend, we're just going to have like those local effects of terrain-driven winds, maybe a sea breeze. We'll see how far it's able to work inland and stuff like that in the afternoon. But there's no real changes on the horizon to the weather. I mean, outside shot Sunday into Monday, we might see a bit of a wind shift, but then the high pressure builds back in right again on Tuesday. So that I'd say part of the forecast is maybe moderate confidence. So the long and the short of it is there's really not going to be a whole lot of change to wind direction, or really any big wind shifts. We'll see maybe a little shift, you know, from like northwest to light and variable, that kind of stuff, but nothing really big on the horizon now, if that answers it. Okay, great, thanks.
Hi, this is for the refuge. In your CCP plan, you have about 5,000 acres for prescribed burning. Can you talk to the audience about, you know, what the plan is? Is it going to stay the same when, or is it going to change when the new CCP plan comes out? I'd be curious.
Okay, we're going to bring up our refuge manager here, Andy Loringer.
Thank you, Tom. And first of all, thank you all for taking time to be here tonight and get all of the information. I just want to take a moment to, again, I think someone recognized the efforts and the work that's going on out there from Tom, his team, the firefighters, all the cooperators, the borough, CES, the gas line utility, NSTAR, and Homer Electric. All of the cooperation that is happening here is really unbelievably critical to the long-term success in managing this, and it has really been a wonderfully coordinated in terms of everything that needs to happen is happening. We recognize that there are negative impacts that are happening right now. We're concerned about those impacts, and everybody involved in this event is doing everything they can to mitigate those and to minimize them and to shorten them as much as possible. So the area that this fire, the question I think was about prescribed burning, the area that this fire started in actually was under planned development for a future prescribed burn. And a lot of that, the reasons for that, and the major focus for that is what Tom and others have talked about, which is reducing hazardous fuels. That in the long term, what that means is that the potential for catastrophic fire to negatively impact these communities is significantly reduced, and for a long period of time. It's not that fire can't come back in a shorter time, but typically the average time for fire to return in a black spruce ecosystem in this part of Alaska is 70 to 80 years. Many of you are aware of the fire history here. The last big fire that occurred here was in 1947. So, prescribed burning, as you can see, from the challenges associated with an event that has 500 of the best firefighters in the world here, is a challenging proposition under any circumstance. It's especially challenging here. So what we do on an annual basis, what we've looked at, and a big part of sort of the strategic thinking and change of thinking in terms of what's best for protecting communities and keeping fire on the landscape for the positive benefits that it has to habitats and wildlife. We all know that following those big fires of the mid-1950s, of 1947, and another big one in Swanson River area in 1969, how that benefited wildlife populations, and particularly moose, but a lot of other wildlife depend on fire here as well. A healthy forest depends on fire. But we've switched strategically to understanding that the main agent of managing fire on this landscape is going to be successfully managing natural fire when it occurs out there in ways that, again, the threats to the community are mitigated. That is what is going to do that much more successfully. So part of the strategic thinking here, we'll put prescribed fire on the ground when and if we can, but how we manage these fires over time is really the best approach. And so a lot of the strategic thinking that went into the Funny River fuel break, the shaded fuel break that the refuge put in along Funny River Road, and the large masticated line that was put in right before the Funny River fire and contributed to the successful protection of those communities, we looked immediately at that success and we said, Where is the next strategic location where we have large stands of black spruce adjacent to communities? And guess what? That answer was right here in the Sterling community. So over the last several years, we focused our efforts on that major fuel break that now extends for 8 miles just to the east of Sterling along the refuge. And that's been done through working with Hans and a state forestry group, the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, the Kenai Peninsula Borough, other landowners in that area, Chugach Butte. A bunch of cooperatives have worked together to put that fuel break in place, and very much like the Funny River fire and the Funny River fuel break, the timing couldn't have been better. That project, as much progress has been made. It's about 9 miles of fuel break around the community of Sterling, north and south of the Sterling Highway, that red line, and heading further west. So that's really going to be our focus. That is our best approach in the long run to managing fire on the landscape, is where and when we can to try to safely manage these fires that are going to naturally occur here. One thing we know, 2014, Funny River Fire, 2015, Cart Street Fire, 2017, East Fork Fire, 2019, Swan Lake Fire. We're going to have fire in this ecosystem, and living with that and making these kinds of decisions to try to strategically address that fact and manage these incidents. Again, we have the best firefighters in the world here doing that right now, and we really appreciate that.
So I think what we want to do now is we're going to have subject experts stick around so that we can move around a little bit. So just briefly, in the back room, I see John Winters here. So he has a Firewise trailer outside, so he can help you with Firewise in your home. Brown shirts over here are the refuge people. In the back is your DOF representative, the Division of Forestry. They do the initial pack around here. Your local emergency services with Dan Nelson and Chief Roy Browning over here. Fire information is here, and we'll just stick around and answer questions specifically. You want to go fire weather or something, come in here and go ahead and ask your individual questions. And Sam, you want to finish out with information here?
Yeah, the handout you have there are locations online where you can find information. If we captured your email up here at the front as you came in, we can email those to you. If you signed up last Friday when you went here and you're not getting those emails, it could be a penmanship problem, it could be something that we're not getting right. Please come see us again. I have a few other information officers here. Let me know, we can take care of that. So please, if you have any questions, come forward, stick around. We'll be glad to help you out.
All right, everyone, so that concludes the Sterling Community Meeting here. We have broken out into individual sessions. We have our operations map straight ahead of us, and as you can see around the room, we've got the community engaging with different parts of the public over here, breaking out with forestry, breaking out with the air quality and refuse people. So the meeting went well, lots of great questions. Got members of the community that are happy over here. We want to thank you for tuning in, and it's been a little chatty here, so we're good. Close our feed. This will be posted on Division of Forestry Facebook that you're seeing it on. And thank you for tuning